When a narcissist finally realizes you're done caring, they don't just quietly leave. They burst with anger, they fall apart, and then they pull out their most dangerous move. Because the moment they feel power slipping away, they use a trick so cunning and planned that most people don't see it coming until they're already trapped again. And here's the troubling part, this final trick is never obvious. It doesn't look like manipulation. It looks like a genuine change, like regret, like an outpouring of affection, or even like a crisis that forces you to return. But the real reason behind it is much darker. Stay with me because understanding this one pattern could save you months, even years of emotional pain. If this is hitting you harder than you expected, please pause for a moment and give this video a like so more people can protect themselves from these patterns. Also, let me know in the comments if you've ever seen this dramatic personality shift happen in real life. When a narcissist understands they are losing emotional control over you, something inside them breaks. This isn't about love, connection, or missing you. It's about losing the power they secretly believed they owned. Narcissists depend on emotional dominance to survive. They don't just want your attention, they need your reactions, your worries, your explanations, your confusion. Every time you defend yourself, explain your actions, or try to fix things, you are fueling them. So when you stop caring, when you stop responding, when your voice becomes quiet and your heart is no longer available for their chaos, they feel it as a psychological wound. It's an ego collapse. They never expect you to detach. In their minds, they assume you will always be there, always affected, always drawn back by guilt, fear, or hope. When that connection is cut, it leaves them exposed. A narcissist without control feels helpless and unimportant, and being unimportant is their deepest fear. It threatens the very core of their identity. Your lack of caring sends a message they can't handle. They are not the center of your world. Their manipulation didn't work. Their tactics didn't break you the way they wanted. This is why their behavior becomes unpredictable. They can swing between anger and desperation, between silence and chasing you, between fake apologies and cold revenge. They are trying to find any way to make you feel something again, because caring, whether through love, anger, or pain, keeps you tied to them. Indifference is what breaks that tie. They panic because emotional detachment is the one thing they cannot manipulate. They can twist your blame, your hope, your guilt, your confusion, your empathy, but they cannot manipulate a calm, steady, detached mind. Once you stop reacting, their tactics lose their power. Once you stop explaining yourself, their script falls apart, and once you stop needing answers, they lose the ability to control the story. Your lack of emotional response is the moment they realize their influence over you is ending. And that's when their panic truly begins. The reason their final trick is so dangerous is because it's designed to destabilize you at the exact moment you are becoming strong. When you pull away, you are finally gaining clarity. You are seeing their patterns, reclaiming your boundaries, and rebuilding your emotional stability. A narcissist can feel this shift like a sudden drop in temperature. They sense when you are becoming grounded, when you are thinking logically instead of emotionally, when your heart is no longer caught in their chaos. And that's the moment they launch their most calculated move. This trick is not loud or obvious. It's subtle, strategic, and perfectly tailored to your emotional history with them. They know exactly what used to trigger you. They know what used to break your resolve. They know what used to make you doubt yourself. So they choose a tactic designed to shake your balance just enough to pull you back into the cycle. It might be a sudden apology that feels unusually sincere, or a confession of vulnerability you've always longed to hear. It might be a dramatic crisis that forces you to worry, or a quiet withdrawal that makes you wonder if you were wrong. This trick works because it targets the psychological points they have studied in you: your empathy, your loyalty, your compassion, your desire for things to be resolved. Narcissists don't change their behavior when you stop caring. They intensify it. They simply package it in a softer way. The goal isn't genuine connection, it's disruption. They want to stop your emotional progress to make you doubt your decision, to pull you back into emotional confusion where they thrive. Their final trick is powerful because it imitates everything you wished they were capable of. It offers a glimpse of the version of them you were loyal to, but the intention behind it is deeply manipulative. It's not growth, it's not healing, it's bait. They're doing whatever they must to restore the imbalance where they held all the emotional power. And the moment they feel you slipping emotionally, they do everything they can to regain that control. This trick appears at the exact moment you stop reacting. That's why most people don't recognize it for what it truly is. When you emotionally detach, the dynamic changes in a way the narcissist cannot stand. For the first time, they are not the one setting the emotional tone. They are not the one controlling the conversation. They are not the one deciding how you feel. Your silence, your calmness, your lack of interest, it puts them in unfamiliar territory, and because they can't read you the way they used to, they rely on tactics designed to pull you back into emotional involvement. They do this through exaggerated manipulation. It often starts with them playing the victim. Suddenly, they are hurt, lonely, misunderstood, or going through something tragic. They might send long messages about their pain, their stress, their past, anything that could trigger guilt or concern in you. If that doesn't work, they shift into a different role, the changed person. They might promise therapy, self-reflection, or a complete transformation. They speak in a language they know you always wanted to hear, but it's too convenient, too perfectly timed with your distance to be real. If vulnerability and softness don't break through your detachment, they flip again, this time into aggression or defensiveness. They might accuse you of being cold, selfish, or disrespectful. They might rewrite history, blame you, or create drama that forces you to respond. They want to provoke any emotion, anger, fear, confusion, guilt, because those emotional reactions give them access again. The reason this trick is so dangerous is because it comes wrapped in emotional unpredictability. You never know what version of them will appear next, and that confusion keeps you off balance. In reality, they aren't confused at all. They are calculating. They are testing which emotional button will still work on you. They are trying everything to interrupt your peace and pull you back into the cycle. What you're seeing isn't love, change, or a genuine crisis. It's control desperately trying to stay alive. When you stop caring, something happens inside the narcissist that feels like a direct attack on who they are. Your emotional detachment threatens them more than any argument, confrontation, or breakdown ever could. When you were involved, even in conflict, you were still giving them energy. You were still fueling their ego through reactions, explanations, apologies, or attempts to fix things. The moment that stops, you take away their main source of validation. This is when their behavior becomes unpredictable and extreme. They start switching personalities with intense shifts. One moment they're overly kind or unusually calm. The next they're cold, distant, or cruel. Then suddenly they might act vulnerable, broken, or deeply emotional, as if they've had a huge realization. These wild shifts aren't mistakes or emotional chaos. They are deliberate manipulations designed to see which version of themselves will pull you back in. A narcissist is constantly observing your responses, trying to understand which mask still has power over you. They might cry and say they're lost without you. They might pretend they're finally ready to take responsibility. They might even talk about their past difficult experiences, hoping your empathy will reopen the door. And if none of that works, they escalate. They become aggressive, accusatory, or cold enough to shock your system. They want to trigger emotional confusion because confusion weakens boundaries. A confused mind becomes easier to manipulate. These exaggerated behaviors can feel overwhelming because they target deep emotional levels. You start to doubt yourself. You wonder if they're finally being honest. You wonder if maybe you're giving up right when they're ready to change. That doubt is exactly what they're aiming for. It's not accidental, it's strategic. Their behavior swings from sweet to hostile because they're testing your emotional limits. They're trying to figure out which emotional button still works. They don't want understanding, they want access, they don't want connection, they want control. Emotional unpredictability becomes their weapon, and your confusion becomes their doorway back into your life. The moment you recognize this pattern, you begin to see that their extreme behavior is not a reflection of their true feelings. It's a reflection of their panic. When a narcissist feels you slipping out of their emotional grasp, their behavior doesn't soften, it sharpens. This is when their most manipulative tactics appear. The goal isn't to make up, it's to regain power. They want to pull you back into the emotional loop where they decide how you feel, how you respond, and how much of yourself you give. What they fear most is not losing you, but losing the influence they had over your thoughts and emotions. At this stage, their actions become targeted and calculated. They try to recreate situations that used to weaken you. They bring up old memories, private jokes, or moments that once made you feel connected to them. They know how powerful nostalgia is, and they use it as a weapon. If that doesn't work, they turn to guilt. They'll remind you of the times they supported you, even if those moments are exaggerated or made up. They do this because guilt is one of the strongest emotional hooks. They know it can make you question your boundaries. And if guilt doesn't pull you back, they shift to fear. Not always through direct threats, though sometimes that happens. Often it's subtle. They hint that something bad might happen without you. They imply that you're the only one who understands them, or the only one who can stop them from spiraling. They want you to feel responsible for their emotional state, even though they never took responsibility for yours. But the most dangerous part of this tactic is how carefully it's disguised. It doesn't look like manipulation. It looks like vulnerability, urgency, or emotional honesty. It's presented as a crisis that needs your attention. It's framed as something that makes you feel needed again. And being needed is powerful, especially for someone who has loved deeply or forgiven often. What they're doing is simple. They're trying to interrupt your healing. They sense your clarity, your strength, your growing self-worth, and they know if they don't destabilize you now, they'll lose their grip forever. Their manipulation intensifies not because they care, but because they're terrified of becoming unimportant. The emotional chaos they're creating is intentional. It's their last attempt to make sure you don't walk away with your power intact. A narcissist becomes most reactive when they feel their control slipping. And your emotional detachment is the strongest signal that their influence is fading. When you pull back, they can sense that their usual tactics aren't working. You're not arguing. You're not explaining. You're not defending yourself. You're not trying to fix anything. You're simply unavailable. And this emotional neutrality threatens them more than any confrontation ever could. It tells them that the version of you they could easily manipulate is gone. This is where they begin to struggle internally. Their sense of identity is built on how others respond to them, especially people they once controlled. When you stop reacting, their internal world feels unstable. They start questioning their importance, their impact, and their ability to shape your emotions. To them, this isn't just a loss, it's an insult. They feel replaced, ignored, and emotionally powerless. And those feelings push them into a panic. They try to hide behind their manipulative behavior. Your detachment makes them unpredictable because they don't understand stillness. They only understand emotional intensity. They thrive in chaos, conflict, and emotional ups and downs. When you give them none of that, they don't know how to ground themselves. So, they create situations that force you to react again. They might provoke you with accusations, disappear suddenly, reappear dramatically, or even act as if nothing happened. They're throwing emotional darts, hoping one hits the target. The danger is that these tactics can feel personal, like a reflection of your worth or your choices, but in reality, they're a reflection of the narcissist's fear. Your calmness exposes their instability. Your silence highlights their desperation. Your emotional distance reveals how dependent they were on your reactions, and that realization shakes them in ways they cannot explain. The reason your detachment is your greatest strength is because it removes the emotional fuel they rely on. When you stay steady, quiet, and unaffected, they lose the ability to pull you back into the cycle. They can no longer predict your responses, and unpredictability is what terrifies them most. They will do almost anything to regain emotional control. But the moment you understand why, their power over you dissolves. When a narcissist feels their control slipping, their behavior becomes so unpredictable and intense that it can confuse even the strongest, most self-aware person. This confusion is intentional because unpredictability is one of their most powerful weapons. When you don't know what version of them is coming next, your nervous system stays alert. You become extra aware, cautious, emotionally on edge, and that's exactly where they want you because people who are emotionally unsettled are easier to manipulate. Their unpredictability is designed to overwhelm your senses. One moment they act vulnerable, sharing stories about their pain or their childhood to trigger your empathy. They might tell you they can't sleep, can't eat, or can't function without you. Then, without warning, they completely change their approach. They become cold, dismissive, or even hostile. They accuse you of being heartless or selfish for pulling away. This sudden shift hits you emotionally because the contrast is shocking. You start wondering if you misunderstood the situation or if you were too harsh. This back and forth is engineered to destabilize your emotional foundation. Narcissists know that clarity makes you strong, but confusion makes you compliant. When your mind is overwhelmed, trying to make sense of their sudden changes, you're more likely to give them another chance, or reopen the door just to regain emotional stability. They want you tired, uncertain, and doubting yourself, because that's when you're most vulnerable to their influence. The unpredictability also creates a false sense of urgency. You feel pressured to respond quickly, to fix the problem, to comfort them, or to restore peace. They rely on this urgency because it keeps you reacting instead of thinking deeply. As long as you're reacting, you're still emotionally connected to them, even if the connection is painful. The truth is, none of this unpredictability is accidental. It's a performance built on your habits and your past responses. They are watching closely to see what emotional swing pulls you back in. Their unpredictability is not confusion, it is strategy. Once you understand that the chaos they create is intentional, not emotional, you stop taking their shifts personally. And when you stop taking it personally, their most powerful weapon loses its effect. When everything else fails, when guilt doesn't move you, when nostalgia doesn't touch you, when their threats, tears, and sudden vulnerability no longer pull you back, this is when the narcissist reveals their final, most shocking trick. They try to rewrite the entire story. This is the last card they play when they realize your heart is closed, your mind is clear, and their influence is gone. And it's the one tactic that can catch even emotionally strong people off guard. They begin by shifting into a role that feels strange, almost unsettling. Instead of chasing, provoking, or manipulating you directly, they suddenly adopt a stance of complete indifference. They act like they never cared, like you never mattered, like your absence means nothing. And this cold dismissal is not random. It's used as a weapon. It's designed to trigger a deep emotional wound inside you. They want you to question your entire experience with them. They want you to wonder if you imagined the connection, the intimacy, the history, the promises. By acting as if you're irrelevant, they try to reverse the emotional power dynamic. They're attempting to convince you that they walked away first, that they detached before you, that you were the one who lost something valuable, not them. This rewriting isn't based in truth, it's based in panic. Their ego cannot tolerate the reality that you saw through them and moved on without their permission. They start creating stories about you, sometimes subtle, sometimes bold. They might imply to others that you were the problematic one. They might act overly happy and unbothered to make you question whether they were ever affected. They might post cryptic messages or stories that paint them as the strong one, the healed one, the one who outgrew you. This performance is not confidence, it's retaliation. It's their way of reclaiming the identity they feel slipping out of their hands. What makes this tactic so damaging is that it targets your sense of reality. Narcissists know that if they can twist your perception of what happened, they can disrupt your healing. They don't need to pull you back emotionally. They just need to make you doubt yourself long enough for the cycle to reopen. Their final trick is not about love, closure, or truth. It's about rewriting the story so they don't have to face the one thing they fear most: the fact that you freed yourself without their permission.